Hey everyone, my name's Derek, and I just have a heart, and we have a heart here as a church to help equip families with the questions that they're asking and help them think through things biblically. And so today the topic is social media. I brought my friends Brittany and JP to help us think through the question, when should my child have social media? Should my child have social media? How should parents, how should families think through that question?
Well, I just want to submit to the nation's leading expert on social media. And all things.
It's like because you're on it all the time? Is that, what does that mean?
I don't know what that says about my work-life balance.
You're seeing this a lot, I know, just amongst the students. And so this is like a student-pastor sandwich kind of situation. So just thank you guys for letting me hang out with the cool kids.
You're welcome. Yeah,
anytime.
welcome.
We're playing Chubby Bunny next.
One thing, we recently had a conversation around dating, and one thing I didn't say there that I would say here is, I think as parents, we do not need to feel any burden to parent all of our children the same.
That's so good.
And so sometimes you may have a child that uses social media for good and one that uses it for bad. Yeah. One can have it, one can't. Yeah. And that's okay. Mm-hmm. And you can be really clear about that. And I think C.S. Lewis has this quote, I'll butcher it a little bit, but he just says, so great is something's potential for good, equally great is its potential for evil. And he uses the illustration of a cow. Like a cow has little potential for good and little potential for evil, but a human, much more potential for both good and evil. Social media is a really polarizing tool with tremendous potential for good and tremendous potential for evil. Mm-hmm. And with children and teenagers, I do not think the good is worth the bad, personally. And so if I'm going to allow my kids to have it, it is going to be with a lot of boundaries, because I'm teaching them how to guard their heart, Proverbs 4:23. I'm teaching them how to renew their mind, Romans 12:1-2, to present their bodies as living sacrifices, not conforming any longer to the world. The pitfalls of social media, it is an outlet for comparison. Mm-hmm. It is an outlet to boast, if you think about it, and it is an outlet to be preyed upon. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are legit predators out there, and it is an outlet to share the gospel.
Yeah.
And so, and to kind of keep your grandparents updated if they have TikTok. So
yeah, totally. I think something that we forget about with social media is how helpful it is to stay connected to each other. And I think a lot of times what I see with parents is they fall in two camps of either my kid has no social media or my kid has every social media, and I just remove myself from the equation. Mm-hmm. What I've seen be the most helpful is when parents are well informed on what forms of social media their students have, their kids have, and how those operate. If you think of how many opportunities for direct messages or friend requests or whatever, follower, whatever the term is that site gives, that person has direct access to your kid. And so I think the most successful parents interacting with social media, or most successful kids interacting with social media, is because their parents know how the apps work and know how to interact with them themselves.
Yes, you can't throw up your hands.
Totally.
And let's be honest. I'm in this awkward place with my kids where I do a lot on social media, right? I mean, totally. I am on Instagram every day and a lot on Friday. And so there is this, do as I say, not as I do, which is a big parenting no-no in a lot of areas, except for I may have a glass of wine with a steak, and I'm not going to let my 15-year-old have a glass of wine with a steak.
Totally. Yep.
So it's okay. I'm okay saying, oh yeah, no, I have Instagram as a tool. It's a part of my occupation. It's a part of my ministry, and you can't because you're not ready for it. Let's also say, in the same way that we say not all children are the same or teenagers are the same, not all social media platforms are the same.
For sure.
And so a Be Real is different than TikTok. And you have to be informed. Not that your kids are on Twitter, but Twitter's, because they're not, but Twitter's one of the biggest distributors of pornography online. And people don't realize that.
Yeah.
They don't realize. They're like, what, Twitter? I thought that was just where, political people go and make statements. And it's no, it is a massive distributor of pornography. and TikTok, like there you can find all kinds of crazy things on TikTok, and the algorithms are like Satan.
Yeah.
I mean, they really are. They're like,
Truly
oh,
are.
you dwelled on that for 16 seconds. We'll dwell on this for 16 minutes, and they'll just start feeding you more sinful content. So you do need to be informed. I agree with you.
Totally. It's an interesting thing about TikTok too is that most students now, or teenagers, are using TikTok as like a search engine. So instead of going to Google, they're looking things up on TikTok. And so they're not looking up, they're getting presented immediately, whatever they're searching, whether they know it's good or bad, immediately being met with photos and TikToks and videos, and just immediately sucked into that algorithm.
Reels, all the things. Yeah, and so I think those pitfalls. Would you guys add to the list? So it's, and this is where I really wrestle with this too, because I want to give people a window into my life under the banner of authenticity, but not. It's a weird thing that we have these platforms where it's become completely okay to boast. It's like, check me out on the beach vacation. It's beautiful. This is my hotel room. Isn't it amazing? Look, here's the balcony. And it's just a total flex, and it's become normative. And I don't think it's humble. I don't think it's Philippians 2, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others more important than yourselves. The comparison, right? I think we're seeing the highest levels of anxiety, the highest levels of depression, especially among teenage girls. They are the ones that are affected by this the most. And I think it becomes from just trying to keep up the game, looking at other people's highlight reel and comparing your mundane life to their Hawaii vacation. Yeah. And I think of Galatians 1:10, am I now trying to win the approval of God or of people? Am I trying to please people? For if I'm trying to please people, I would not be a bondservant of Jesus. What does it look like for me not to try to ratchet up, to not try to get the best, to not to compare myself to somebody else? And then I just would say, I don't want to fearmonger here. I don't think it's normal. I mean, I don't think it's, I just don't want to fearmonger. I'm hesitant to do that. And yet there are some real predators on Instagram and on TikTok that are looking after they're going after your children, and they're trying to exploit them. And that's the truth. I mean, that's happening.
Yeah. I mean, there's actual laws in place to keep people under the age of 13 off of those sites because it collects their information. And so even as a culture outside of Christianity, like we understand it's a dangerous place for kids to be is on social media sites.
Absolutely. So my child comes to me and says, every single one of my friends is on Snapchat, and I can text, but no one texts. They only snap. Yeah. Like, how should a parent think through that question? Because that may be true.
Totally.
And maybe all of their friends are only communicating through that platform.
We spend a lot of time in our home talking about the importance of relationships, what they are for and what they are not for. And we talk about, hey, guess how much of my high school friends I talk with on a regular basis. And I just say, I know that it feels like these friends are like the end all be all, but I want you to know there's going to be seasons in life where you move on into new relationships. And I even ask them, I'm like, hey, where do you see me spend a lot of my time? And they'll come back, well, your life group, your small group, your community group, your church group. And I'm like, that's right. Those are kind of a new group of friends. And so my high school friends are people I do ministry to on occasion, but they're not people that I do ministry with. And so I know that there's a real burden to not being able to keep up with all of the communication. And I know that can feel really very lonely, but it is also protecting you from some of that drama. You're going to hear, so-and-so broke up with who, and you're not going to believe, and oh my goodness. And it's like, hey, your heart is being protected from that. And while you feel left out, the reason you feel left out because you were left out, I want you to know it's okay to be left out in some seasons. And so we have to talk through that a lot. And then there is, you may say with a child, hey, it's okay to have that for the purpose of communicating like this, but with their phones, we're going to have, hey, your phone, like my kids can't take their phone in the bathroom. They can't take their phone in their room. They can't take their phone upstairs. Phones are for the kitchen and the living room. Like, those are the two areas. And so they can come there, they can check it, they can have the communication from that thing, but then they put it up, and they're just not We don't allow to sit there and just scroll from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. One, it's not good for their brain.
Yeah.
And you can't be afraid, parents, of being the bad guy.
Yeah.
Like, you're the parent.
Yeah.
And it's okay to come up with rules. It's okay to say, no, like, as you live here, we won't do that. And when they say, but everybody else is doing that, you can just wear that like a badge of honor and say, I want you to know it's going to be very different in our home. We're not going to do what everyone else does. And I think parents live in the fear of, yeah, but when they go to college, they're going to be crazy. They're going to wild and out. That happens.
Yeah.
That happens. But you know what else happens? A lot of times kids that were raised in homes with really great boundaries turn out to be excellent role models and excellent adults. And you can't control the outcome. You know, I can't promise you if you do this, this, and this, they're going to turn out this way. But I can tell you that there's a principle, it's not a promise, but a principle in the scripture that says, train up a child in the way that they should go, so that as they grow old, they would not depart from it.
Yeah.
So.
I think another helpful thing within that conversation too is like, hopefully that's not the only thing that everyone else is doing and they're not, you know?
Yeah.
And I think parents have a really good privilege of modeling out like, hey, here's what accountability with my cell phone looks like. Like, here's how Monica and I talk about these things. And like, you don't decide the day
you're meddling now. That's what you're doing.
Sorry, that's on me. That's on me.
Doing.
I've been dying to get an inside scoop, but it's the conversations prior to handing them the phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's them seeing you put your phone away at dinner. It's them seeing you prioritize FaceTime to screen time. And I think those conversations make the, hey, we're not going to be like everyone else conversation easier because they're going to be able to finish your sentence. Like they're going to know.
Brittany, that is so great. I want to always be able to say to my kids, you're right. We're not like everyone else.
Yeah.
Remember when we went and got ice cream, last Tuesday? I didn't see anyone else, and none of your friends were there. And remember when we got to do this, and remember when we got to do, and you're right. So and so's. You told me their parents were always fighting. You're right. We're not like everyone else. Like we don't want to be like everyone else, and this is one of those ways where we're not like everyone else. And there's going to be some ways where it's like we can be in the world but not of the world. This is really good.
For sure. Yeah. I also think of scripture along those lines is Ephesians 5:15 and 16, where it says, be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. And it's like, can you make the most of every opportunity if you're consistently on Snapchat or if you're consistently scrolling through TikTok? And so I think like with your kids and their phones being in specific places, like you have to be mindful of how you're spending that time because you're not just sucked into your phone.
Yeah, that's true.
Any other questions that parents should be thinking through, questions to either ask their kid or ask their life groups or ask each other as they're thinking through this conversation, as they're navigating? It's a hard conversation, but just any other questions they should be thinking through?
I think a really great question to talk through is what does accountability look like once, like, I think number one, sorry, let me backtrack. Number one is this is an ongoing conversation. I don't think it's hey, we're going to let you have Instagram. That's that. I think it's an ongoing conversation as parents and with their student, with their child. And then it's like, hey, what does accountability look like? Who has access to the accounts? What does your screen time look like? And I think it's a consistent conversation of how is accountability working well for us and how is it not working well and where do we need to pivot and adjust?
I would just say we're not here to give you a rule to say, totally. Hey, your kids can't get on the phone until they're this age, or they can't have this social media, but they can. We're here to say, hey, you need to know what they are. You need to be a student of your kid first and foremost.
Yeah.
You need to understand what their pitfalls are, how the enemy wants to take them out, because he does. He wants to take them out. He will use social media as one of the means and methods that he'll try to take them out. We're here to say, hey, you need to know the tools that they're using to communicate. You unfortunately have to be really familiar with those tools, which is a little bit like going back to college, if you will. Thirdly, I wouldn't let my kids be on any platform that I'm not on myself.
Yeah.
That is a way to monitor. Then I'll just say, I want to give you, as a pastor, if I have any authority, if there's anything, I want to give you complete and absolute total freedom to meddle. Okay. Like you know, I've had parents tell me, well, I don't want to look at their phone because I want them to know that I trust them. And I'm like, no, you can look at their phone. Like you should set up that system where it's like, no, as I give you this device, you need to know that what this me giving you this device comes with is that I'm going to look at this device and come up with rules with this device and boundaries with this device, and that's absolutely true in the topic of social media.
Yeah.
And so those are some things that that come to mind.
Totally.
Those are great things to be thinking through. Thank you guys. It's so helpful. And thank you for engaging with us. We hope this is helpful. We hope this is a conversation started for you, for your family, for your life group. If there's any questions you have on this topic or any other topic, please feel free to reach out.